imagine, white conservatives, if you're listening still, listen to me. Imagine if I pulled out, say, an inbred redneck with 3 teeth who was shooting, the hard R everywhere and couldn't spell his own name, and I said, that's you. I said, that's you, white people. Would you be okay with that? Wow, this was one train wreck of a conversation. So I saw this conversation between Tim Pool and Andrew Klavan that was absolutely abysmal on Klavan's part. Who, disclaimer, I don't hate. I think his scripture breakdowns are quite good. But he started to go into, when they went over a BLM, they started to go into black culture. I believe it was Jordan Peterson, I think it was him, that said the way you can tell when you're dealing with a blind ideologue is if you can predict everything they're going to say before they say it. And upon meeting some pushback on what he was saying, Klavan goes full boomer Republican. Because one of my trigger words I hear on the left or right is when I hear the term black culture. Because as soon as I hear that term, it's very easy to predict what is coming next. Well, you notice, when it comes down to that topic, the white liberal and the white conservative, they're like hand in hand on that topic. They'll never define it. They'll kind of define it, but they'll never be outright with a definition. I want to break down why this boomer mindset needs to die off. Like I said, the whole point of this video is not, let's own the cons. No, not at all. The point is to show you why you should not take these steps or use these talking points or go down this route, because in the end, it's only going to harm you and help the left. And it's been harming you. And like I said, I'm going to break this down in a way, if I have I think a lot of the white conservatives get these talking points out of ignorance, not malice. I don't think they legitimately hate us. I think people who tell them these things tend to not like us. But I think they're painting a certain picture of us to them, to people who don't interact with us. So they're building these negative stereotypes in their head, often built off left-wing media, too. The right tries to act like they're not manipulated by left-wing media. They absolutely are. So, let's go into this. Like I said, I didn't hate Klavan because I thought his scripture breakdowns were quite good. And I don't like Tim at all. I think he's slimy, manipulative, and quite dishonest. But I'll give him some credit for, the lightest pushbacks. Okay, so just to catch up to the parts I don't miss, they're starting by talking about the whole, BLM buying the mansion and then selling off a mansion to another person, and it sounds a lot like money laundering. Now, the only people who were surprised to find out that BLM was a race hustle and a scam were, white conservatives and white liberals. Black people, we've been knowing it was a scam. We don't like the organization. We've never liked them. I want to show you how this series of events goes down to one of the worst conversations I've seen coming out from somebody on Daily Wire. Which is, if this is who you want to associate with...
out of a nonprofit into private hands, so it is now obfuscated and used for who knows what.
I was waiting for that launder word because that's what it
seems
does.
like.
It does seem like. It sounds like it's just a hint of. I'm going to go all the way on this. First of all, this BLM is a con game all the way down. It is a con game all the way down. They tore this country apart over the death of a fentanyl addict who resisted arrest, and the policing was bad, and that's.
Okay, so already we have reducing this whole situation to nothing more than a fentanyl addict. And I want to point this out. It's weird that the right never referred to Tony Timpa as nothing more than a cokehead, or Ashley Babbitt as a rioter and criminal. It's just weird who gets always referred to by certain terms. I just like to point that out. Also, if the policing was bad, then shouldn't you support Chauvin going to prison then? If bad policing resulted in death, that cop should be held responsible. Like I said, I don't know why the right wants to resist the police brutality narrative, because it affects you too. It's really weird. We just had, it was Eric something, I forgot his name, in California, which was insanely brutal. The white dude murdered by California Highway Patrol brutally, and nobody on the right covered it.
Story, but they tore the country apart. The police don't kill black people. The police are not prejudiced against black people.
I would like to see some numbers on that. I seem to notice that a lot of these, like, these statistics, or like I said, like when they're talking about like the alphabet, for example, like Matt Walsh does this, they talk about like the alphabet. When you're talking about like the alphabet stuff, you have the numbers like, you got all the numbers right off the top of your head. But then when you say stuff like this, we never go into numbers. I just notice you just say it and then let it linger there and move on. Now, later on, you're going to see in a second, he defends the police profiling black people. So I don't understand how he's going to say they're not prejudiced against black people and then say that they should be profiled based off the crime statistics. And we're going to get into the crime statistics because those tend to be grossly misrepresented. And also, what a weird statement. Like, what a weird dichotomous statement. I'm sorry, I don't even know if that's a word, but these don't kill black people? What the fuck?
Black people commit an inordinate amount, let me put it another way, an inordinate amount of the crime, violent crime that is committed by people who are black. 50% of murders.
I think there's a better way to put it.
So he stops right there. Usually when I hear this talking point, this is what I typically respond to. They'll go, well, it's like 7% committing 50% of the murders. Where? Where is that happening? Because then when you break that down, it turns out a large part of this violent crime is happening in gang-infested areas. So then we move on to say, this seems like more of a gang issue, because we can see similar stuff in Hispanic areas, where the Hispanic on Hispanic murder rate, which is higher than white people, for example, we go, well, where is it happening? And then we find that a lot of it is in the gang-infested areas. It tends to be gang violence. Now, my problem with this talking point of changing it to black-on-black crime is you're changing it instead of from gangs to black people. Right? So you're associating like all of us with what is largely happening between gangs. You see why I have a problem with this? Then once we get through that, then you have to go into it further detail. Now you have to go into, well, where did the gangs come from? What caused the formation of a lot of the gangs? One of the examples, the Crips formed in the 1960s. They were formed in a response to the police going into black neighborhoods and brutalizing them. So it started as neighborhood protection. And when you start breaking these down, it gets way more complicated. But this old racist talking point of just associating what's going on with gangs with all black people, right? This needs to stop. This is not okay. I don't see how anybody sees this not coming off as racist. Now, like I said, I think a lot of white conservatives just hear this and repeat it. They don't actually think about it or think inherently every black person they meet is going around committing tons of crime. Often, when I talk to these people, they just hear it and they're just parroting stats they hear from people like Klavan, who I don't give the benefit of the doubt to because he's an intelligent person. He knows what he's doing.
I think it's poor people, and a lot of black neighborhoods tend to be impoverished.
That's another decent way of putting it. When you want to break that down, go into more detail as well. Like I said, when you just frame it as black on black or black violence, it associates all of us with, like I said, with a certain subsection of black people. And then, like I said, we have to go into why they ended up in those circumstances, and this is where the shit gets complicated and it starts to fall apart.
Maybe, but the facts are the facts. If 50% of the country, 7% of the country are black males. It's not that 7% of the country are committing 50% of the murders, because it's a small number. The majority of black people, of course, are not murderers at all. It's a small number.
Then why are you using the term black? Why are you using the term black then? Shouldn't it be gangs? That's my problem with this talking point. This is why I said it's a racist talking point. You're associating all of us with a minority. Why? Because we don't do this to other gangs and other violent community. We don't do this. You don't hear about Latino on Latino crime. You don't hear white on white crime. You don't hear those talking points commonly brought up. And one of the ways that people on the right, like him, try to dismiss this and not address that is just go, well, the numbers are the numbers. And then they just move on and they don't ever question why. Well, why are the numbers the way they are? Why is that? Let's break this down. Let's go into more detail. A lot of the questions from talking points that the right and the left have, the right, you always have to ask why. That tends to where they trip up. And then with the left, you ask how. And then that's where they get tripped up.
Number of bad guys who are black who are committing 50% of the crime. That puts police in a certain position. That means you are statistically more suspicious when you go into a neighborhood and you're black. So you get, and it's very insulting and upsetting for a stand-up guy who's black to get stopped by the police for nothing.
Right.
So he just defended racial profiling. So he said the police are not targeting black people or prejudiced towards black people, but then says, well, based on the statistics, we're going to prejudge black people. Are you fucking kidding me? So you're admitting police are prejudiced towards black people. Notice how he says, again, this is where I said, yo, this is some racist shit, uses black. He's not saying like they're in a gang neighborhood and they see someone wearing colors and everything, and then that makes those police naturally more suspicious. He's saying they see black and they're naturally more suspicious. Do you see the problem with this? So he just tried that the police don't target us or profile us, then goes, well, the police do profile you, but it's justified because y'all committing a bunch of the, crime. That's what I mean. When it's us, it's merely broken down to our race and that's it. But when it's other groups of people, well, now we take other considerations into account with what are they wearing? Do we see any tattoos, etc., etc.
It's also upsetting for a stand-up cop who's also in the majority.
No, the way American policing right now is the stand-up cops are not the majority. Like I said, I'm not anti-police. I'm anti-police how they function now. Again, I don't consider you a let me put it this way. You can be a good person and a bad cop, right? Because the system of policing we have right now is absolutely abysmal. I was going to go, I got sick so I couldn't go, but there was this pro-police rally that the right was holding in California. I wanted to go. I wanted to ask them questions. I was going to go, how are you going to say that these are good cops? I would say, come out here with your ARs. Just hold your ARs out in public. Watch what will happen. Watch what those police will do to you. That is your right, your God-given right as an American citizen. But because Newsom said, hey, fuck that shit, those police will be like, okay. And then your ass is going to jail for doing nothing wrong constitutionally. I'm sorry, the way policing functions as it is in America right now is not good, and the minority of police are actually good. That doesn't mean that cop is inherently a bad person. That's, I think, a distinction that needs to be made.
He's accused of being racist because there was a bad cop. So all I'm saying is this is a con game from the beginning.
But you just admitted the police are racist and target people, should be prejudiced towards black people solely on the basis of their race. Okay.
Their open plan on their website until they took it down was a Maoist plan to violently introduce socialism and destroy the American family and destroy, as they call it, cisgender sexuality, and they did it through riots. It's a kind.
Okay, really, this is what I said. This is the boomer mindset where they kind of don't really research much. Do you think the black community agrees with destroying the nuclear family and implementing socialism violently? Or do you think that's just fucking BLM, who is a loony group that we don't take seriously? Sort of like, it's like, yo, black people, especially black men, very much hold conservative values. Then people like Klavan will go up, say shit like this, and then go, why don't black people vote Republican? And I'm like, because when you're openly vitriolic and nasty, people spite vote. I've always said I don't like spite voting. I said do not do that. It's bad. Spite voting is how we got Biden. Don't never spite vote. That's hot garbage. But this is my problem with the right, is they lack introspection. I don't understand. They're so busy attacking the left, they never stop and ask themselves, wait, maybe our rhetoric is the problem. Trump barely reached out to the black community and doubled his black support. You had to do so little to double your black support. Well, I think this is not hard. But I think the people who are smarter know this and go like, we don't want them here. Like, okay, well then don't complain when, a lot of people spite vote Democrat. It's not hard. A lot of people vote on emotion. Don't do it, but that's how people are.
It's all a con game.
And specifically on their website, targeting the family, disrupting the nuclear family.
Yes,
but I would love to actually have a deeper, like a moral discussion, because I think we often don't go through it. I mentioned poverty and you mentioned race, but
Right.
I don't think you're implying that based on race they're committing more crime. Just that
I don't imply that. I don't think that's true at all. I think the left thinks it's true. I think
Right.
that's why they want to get rid of bail and they want to get rid of policing, because they literally, the left does not think black people can rise above. And I thoroughly believe they can.
Okay. No, you don't. That's contradictory to all the shit you just said. Sort of like how the right, like he just went on defending the police profiling black people and then just going like, you can overcome it. Yeah, you can, but that shouldn't be there to begin with. That's the problem. And then these people will always go, well, the left are the real racists. We already know the left does not like us, dude. This is why I said when I hear the term black culture from a white liberal or a white conservative, I already know what's going to be coming next because they say the same shit. They phrase it differently, but they say the same thing. But that's coming up in a second.
So the issue I see, having grown up in Chicago, having lived in New York, is that I agree. I think the stats are the stats that come from the FBI. I think it's tied to
Because we all know the right trusts the FBI.
poverty. And then there's the issue of historical wealth and systemic racism. Now, often the right says, there isn't systemic racism, or we recently saw with Jon Stewart and Andrew Sullivan. Sullivan said, what systems, what systems? John had a terrible argument, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. He couldn't define it. At least as far as Tim is right now, he's pretty much on point. With this, at least. Yeah, I saw that argument. Yeah, a lot of times with white liberals, remember what I said? The way to stump the right conservative is just ask why, and then the way to stump the white liberal is just go how. They don't know. They just say these things. They don't actually research anything they actually say. The talking points they spout, they actually don't know how to back it once you break it down. They just start to freeze up. Yeah, you'll see white liberals screech systemic racism, and then you go, oh, really, how? They freeze up. I can tell you how. I just want to see if you know how, or if you're just spewing bullshit.
Andrew performed poorly. Did you see that segment they did?
Yeah.
And so I would love to get your thoughts on this. The way I see it is crime is tied to poverty. And I think what we end up seeing with like FBI crime stats, it actually generates racist beliefs that some people believe race is the component that causes the crime.
Yes, and this is an attitude that I've been seeing growing on the right, and that's why I've been getting really concerned. As I've gone over when I addressed other people in other videos that are starting to infer it's like genetic, or like I said, on the right, race realism has been catching on. I have literally seen people like Elijah Schaffer and Brandon Tatum push race realism ideas. They rephrase it a little nicer. It doesn't change the fact this is a talking point from white nationalists, actual white nationalists, not what the left defines it.
I think poverty is the component, and I think there are elements of history in the United States going back to, say, the 80s.
See, I would say culture. If poverty caused crime, Wall Street would be an honest place.
So here we have base Tim, and now we're going to go into what I said. As soon as I hear black culture, whenever I hear this from a white conservative, white liberal, I always ask, well, what do you mean by that? What is black culture? Every single time I have asked this to one of these people, they give me the most horrifically racist responses ever that, again, a lot of them tend to break down to talking points that I've heard from white nationalists. I'm not, because like I said, I talk to a lot of different people or listen to a lot of different people because I want to know how they think.
Yeah,
People,
but
what poverty does, what poverty does is it limits the kind of crime you could commit. The guy who holds you up in an alley would happily write a check and steal money from a company without risking his life.
Well,
but he doesn't have that option.
Is it violent crime?
Is it violent crime? Yeah. So, but people are sinful. They're broken. They're criminal, and that is going to come out everywhere. However, the culture, black culture, has been utterly destroyed, and it was destroyed by Great Society programs by the left. Before the Great Society, before Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, black people were moving into the middle class.
Congratulations, Klavan, you just defined systemic racism. This is always the mind-blowing thing. The right believes there've been and is systemic racism against black people. I have said this in the past that when I'm actually talking to these people, I don't use that word. I never use the word racism or systemic racism. I merely describe it because the right agrees. if I bring up, I don't use the word, I'll bring up Democrat policies that have attacked black people. And I'll bring up that a lot of those policies, and I'll only go to Democrats just because I already know they're in a partisan mindset, and I will bring it to the point where we get to modern day. They tend to agree with me that those policies hurt the black family. I'm like, okay, so you do believe systemic racism. The problem is you just hear it, and it's your trigger word, so you shut down because you think it's a leftist word. And it immediately makes you shut down and get defensive. It's why I don't use this term when talking to people like him.
Faster than they were afterward. They were warned, the Democrats were warned by a Democrat, by their own guy, that these programs would foster single-parent homes and destroy the black family. It used to be that 25% of black children were born out of wedlock. Now it's 75%. That's more than when Democrats were actually selling their slaves, because all the slave owners were Democrats too.
I love how they throw that in like that somehow changes anything. Like, what the fuck? You don't care that the Democrats were the slaveholders? You guys all are against reparations, which the Republicans were fighting for. You all act like there was no party switch. And while I'm somewhere in the middle on that, I'm like, there was and there wasn't. There were in a lot of aspects, but there also wasn't in some aspects. But I love how he just like self-owning himself right now. Because I've seen in other videos that Klavan has brought up that he thinks systemic racism is just a fucking myth or an excuse. And I'm like, and he's literally defining it right now. This is why I said it exists when Democrats do it. Is that it? It exists when Democrats do it? Okay, well, we're at least halfway there that it exists. But don't act like it doesn't exist as soon as Republicans are in office. Because, all right, Reagan and Nixon did quite a few things to continue to destroy the black community, especially Nixon.
Selling their slaves down the river to purposely break up the family. It's worse now. They finally broke up the black family. When you go into
if it's worse than when it was in slavery, then wouldn't reparations be a good start? But, well, okay.
Prison. A Democrat will tell you, oh, look, they're all black and Hispanic, therefore it must be black. They're all fatherless, every single one. You go down that.
The right does that same thing. And also, as far as this black fathers are on a home, okay, they're quoting the marriage rates. And let me go into this. And this is what I want to say. This is where I point out that this is straight up anti-black racism. Why is it that, again, say, look, I'm like, marry the woman you have a child with, okay? Still, statistically, black fathers spend the most time with their kids, and this is marriage rate. Black fathers are in the home. Once you dispel this myth, you have to start getting into, okay, well then now what's causing it? And then shit gets way more complicated. But this is what I want to point out. So since then, let me accept his premise for a second. Okay, let's say it is single motherhood, right? It's not marriage rate, it's single motherhood. It has gone up in Hispanic communities, white communities, and Asian communities. It has been rising universally. Not at the same rate, but it has been rising. Why is it black culture? Do you see the problem with this? Do you see why I said this is anti-black racism? It raises universally, but it's black culture. But when certain crimes or certain things, rise higher in white areas, it's not called white culture. You see the problem with this? Because these are outdated, old boomer racist talking points. Because I like to point out, whenever the right just starts to go, right and left, the left does this just as much. Whenever they start to go into black culture, they find every bad thing that it tends to be universally affecting Americans and attribute it to black culture. Candace Owens is especially infamous for doing this.
That prison cell, you are looking at one fatherless child after another. It's culture. People are poor and honest. Most black people who are poor are also honest. They're trying to build jobs. They're trying to build a life and all this.
We have, but due to, again, targeted attacks by the U.S. government, it's been very difficult to rebuild. Example, like Black Wall Street in Tulsa. It was destroyed twice. Not once. Most people only know about the first time. It was destroyed twice. Originally in the Tulsa massacre, then it was rebuilt over time, And then it was destroyed again in the 1970s by Nixon by using eminent domain and urban development to build a highway straight through it and destroyed it. Also, it sort of points out a contradiction. It's been annoying me in the right, where I keep saying, they keep pointing out that it's like, we need to do better. You guys need to build more. You need to, they always tell this, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? The right likes to say that, but they're just like the left in terms of they will not propose practical action. And what I mean by this is, remember when Amazon put out those commercials saying shop at black businesses? People at Daily Wire, I remember they were like, oh, this is so racist. Why would I go out of my way to make sure, business is owned by a black person to vote or to shop there? That's racial discrimination. I'm like, if y'all are the ones who are saying, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, wouldn't you want to be part of the solution and, go out of your way to spend money in these communities and help build wealth in these communities? You guys should be the first ones there. That's the crazy part. It's like, there's a solution, but y'all don't want to support it. You're just like the ignorant. You're just the ignorance. Like, the way you define them is they love to complain but hate to explain.
When you have no father, when you have broken homes, when each guy has 3 different baby mamas and all this stuff.
Do I even really need to go into why that's racist? Black culture is having 3 baby mamas, right? Left and right do this, man. They like to pull out the ignorance and then go, that's indicative of your culture. They're like, nigga, that's your culture. They'll pull out the worst black ignorant they can find and then go, that's you. That's your culture. No, it's not. Okay, imagine white conservatives. If you're listening still, listen to me. Imagine if I pulled out, say, an inbred redneck with 3 teeth who was shooting, the hard R everywhere and couldn't spell his own name, and I said, that's you. I said, that's you, white people. Would you be okay with that? Because that's what we see all the time. That's what's constantly being told and fed to us. That's the image that is constantly fed to us. This is why I'm trying to bring it back to you. You don't like it when you're portrayed as a bunch of hillbillies, so don't portray us as a bunch of degenerate criminals.
You are going to have more crime, and that's what's happened. This has only happened since the 60s, since the, Jason Riley, one of the much better writers about black problems in America, had a book, and it was called "Please Stop Helping Us." And that's what I think the problem is.
It makes me wonder about the Democrats' position before civil rights and how their position after civil rights still perpetuates serious problems in the black community.
Well, right, because, the Martin Luther King idea that you should be judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin, has gone.
Okay, this when white conservatives do this shit triggers me. This shit sets me off. Stop quoting MLK. You don't know anything else he said. You haven't even read his original speech and everything he has said in that. And it is insulting that you are trying to weaponize our history against us. The other quote that the right loves to throw out is the Malcolm X one of the white liberal is the most dangerous threat to the Negro man. Every single time I've heard somebody say that to me, I go, what did he say after? And I have not had a single person who has quoted that be able to tell me what Malcolm X said right after that. Where he goes on to describe the white conservatives and their problems with black people. He was like, both of you are the same. The difference is the reason the white liberal is more dangerous is because they put on a fake smile and invite you over. The conservative will just say, get the hell away from us. Right? Both of them hate you, but one side will lie about how much they hate you. That's what he actually said. Okay, so I jump ahead a little bit, like 1 minute, because it talks about California's civil rights repeal that they tried to do and it failed miserably. I just think that that part was irrelevant to the conversation. Also because in this conversation, I don't really have a problem with what Tim is saying. Also, sorry if there's a slight buzz. I need the air conditioner. There's a heat wave in LA right now.
Look at the way Democrats, the left, let's say, talk about black people. They say, well, we want more black people in school, in college, so we've got to lower the standards. And you think, really? How about raising the educational level of the crappy schools in their neighborhoods? What would that be like?
Or giving them school choice.
So
they can decide where to send their kids to school
and
instead
Obama
of
just
supporting
gutted
public
that.
schools.
Yes, and the Democrats continually gut that.
But this is the problem,
Like, I have no problem with that part. I was like, Yo, there are drawbacks to school choice. Like I said, as a libertarian, I'm for school choice 100%. I got sent to a charter school because I was getting in trouble at inner city schools. And for school choice, there are drawbacks such as overcrowding and such. So you do need to actually, we do need to fix up the inner city schools.
You've got in Chicago a very serious Democrat problem. I personally think that they thrive on racism.
See, this is where him loses me, because he is very ideological, and he's always like, if you look at his channel, he's like, I'm liberal, but Democrat, 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 Democrat. Never coming after the Republicans when they do openly stupid shit that hurts them. Never going, yo, y'all need to bring it back. What he considers criticizing a Republican is going, Mitch McConnell is lazy. Like, dude, that's a popular opinion on the right. That's not like, look, guys, I'm really actually attacking Republicans. No, Republicans thrive on racism too. Their main focus, though, is anti-black racism. That's the issue. I've brought this up, like media, for example, the institutional racism in media. Do you ever notice, and this goes left and right, but let me point this out on the right. Do you ever notice that all the prominent black conservatives say the same things about black people every single time? They all have the same opinions of them. There's a reason for that, because their core audience are white conservatives, and that's something that makes a lot of them feel comfortable, a lot of times out of ignorance. I don't think most of them are malicious. I think they have been fed racist stereotypes their whole life, and they formed an opinion based off of those because the media lied to them. But saying the right doesn't thrive off racism, I'm like, yo, look what it takes to be prominent black conservative, like mainstreamed. You basically have to put down your own every 5 seconds.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I totally agree.
They make it worse because they can weaponize it to win elections. Yeah. You end up with Chicago being run by Democrats for what now, 100 years? With what? How many improvements have come? It's only gotten worse.
It's only gotten worse.
It's only gotten worse.
But you know what? If I may just, people like to gather with their own. This country, we forget what a revolutionary experiment this country is. What Andrew Sullivan said to Jon Stewart was exactly right. I lived out of this country for 7 years. This is the least racist country on earth. That doesn't mean it's not racist. That doesn't mean there aren't racists. That doesn't mean there aren't systems in place that can be reformed.
See, he's almost had his moment of clarity there. He was very, very, very close. But then the boomer kicks in again. Yeah, I hate this talking point of, this is the least racist country ever, and so? If anything, that's bad. That's bad if America is the standard. And I'm not saying this country's bad at all. That is not my point. My point is, we still have all these systems in place that have destroyed these communities, and this is the best we have. That's the problem.
But this is the only country in the world, since Rome, since the Roman Empire, where we say, if you come over, you are an American. You come here, you're an American. Doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter where you come from. If you look at who is most successful in America, I think it's...
I hate this "we're all Americans" talking point because the right doesn't believe it. They have never believed it. They use it as a tool to dismiss people. Because your language shows you don't see us as all American and all in this together. Otherwise, why are you not advocating to bring up our lowest communities? And when I say our, I mean America. You don't say that. You separate it. You go... You'll be like, we're all Americans, but you niggas, right? That's what you do. You do that all the time. We're all Americans, but you black people, right? They do that. You need to fix your neighborhoods. Wouldn't it be, we need to fix our neighborhoods? Like, as a white conservative, wouldn't you want to say, we need to fix America's poor neighborhoods? We need to fix America's poor minority neighborhoods? No, you always shove it to you guys. So don't give me this "we're all Americans," because you don't even believe that. You separate us. You separate us based on those lines all the time. You don't advocate to help us, even though bringing up the lowest parts of your country helps you. I don't understand why you don't get this. So yeah, I don't ever say that.
Indian Americans. Certainly Chinese Americans are successful. So it's not color, it's not skin color that's keeping people down. This country is amazing in its ethnic diversity. And when you leave places like LA and Chicago that are so largely segregated, like I'm living in a place now where there are plenty of middle-class black people, the couples are all mixed and all this stuff. And you think like, yeah, this is what America does. It has always done it. There's a special problem with black people, which is that everybody else came here to escape the oppression. They alone were oppressed here. And that is a huge difference. It takes a certain amount of grace to forgive a country for doing that to you. I think they're going to have to exercise that grace because it's the only thing that's going to free them from anger in the past. But it's a tough thing to ask for.
I think.
Okay, this is so disrespectful. This is like, you're like one step away from like the hard R in terms of how disrespectful that is. Imagine going and saying, yo, we have done shit to you time and time and time and time and time again, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. We mess with the Japanese, we pay them reparations. We messed with the slave owners, they got reparations. We messed with the Native Americans, they got reservations. Black people, we've continuously attacked you over and over and over and over. Just take it in stride. Just get over it. And we're not sitting there and have anger and hatred towards like white people. Like, what is this? We don't think about you. We're saying, yo, these things are still happening, and you just keep brushing us off. So yeah, we're annoyed. We have every right to be irritated. And to go look at all that history and just say, just, nigga, let it go. It's still happening, and you're telling us to just let it go. This is what I said. It's so disrespectful. You're just saying, let what we're doing to you to continue to happen. You're just saying, shut up and go along to get along. But just notice, it's only one group of people they continuously say, get over it to. And that one group of people has continuously been the same ones targeted over and over and over and over again, and has received no sort of actual apology or tangible apology either. So the utter disrespect and contempt to tell us after the federal government has done so much to us to just say, get over it and take it in stride. Like I said, we're not mad at white people. I got nothing against white people at all. I'm mad at the feds, because a lot of times this was the feds targeting us and institutions targeting us. Okay, so just giving it a little bit. Tim goes on his old thing of, oh, if we just make everything class-based, that'll fix it. The problem with that is, like, look, communities have been targeted differently over time. I'm not saying white communities have never been targeted. I'm not saying, like white communities have problems with, like they have meth going around. They got gangs in there too. The problem with that is different communities have been targeted differently over long periods of time. They have different histories. It can cause different outcomes. Blanket solutions tend to not be very good. Historically with government, whenever government does a blanket solution, it tends not to end well.
To talk about the culture too. This is the thing that gets me about conservatives. Here, this bothers me about conservatives. Everybody knows in America, and this is still true to this day, if you get married before you have children, if you go to high school, if you graduate high school and then get married and then have children, you probably won't be poor.
But again, we are put into these horrible inner city high schools where they don't teach like financial skills. They don't teach you how to build a business. They can barely teach you to read in these schools. And the right has done nothing. They've done nothing about that. They never tried to fix up these schools. They will simply just go, but school choice. And I agree with that part, but the problem is there are drawbacks to school choice. You have to do a combination of both. You have to try to fix these schools simultaneously while allowing school choice. So that doesn't even work when you get out of one of these inner city high schools. And I've got the benefit of going to a rich white school and an inner city school and getting to see the difference of the certain skills that they try to teach you. You need to learn things like finance. You need to learn things like how to build businesses. You need to learn things like trade in high school. Unless you're planning to go into the sciences, you don't need science or chemistry. And these inner city schools can barely teach some people to read. So that doesn't even work.
That's just the stats. However, if you grow up without a dad, if your mom is addicted to drugs, it's a little harder to do that. This is the thing that
So here we go. This is where I said, this is where the conservatives get really, really racist. Did you see it? Black culture is not having a father in the home and your mother is addicted to drugs. This is why whenever I say the white liberal, the white conservative, as soon as I hear that term black culture, I was like, oh, they're about to say some horrific shit. That's how you see us? And we're supposed to vote for you? Because I've already been over, black fathers are in the home. It's marriage rates that are the problem. But see, I can't believe how unbelievably racist he's being right here. I think that's our culture.
Conservatives forget about, like, it may be a little tougher. It's easier to do that when you grow up in the suburbs and you've seen it done. You know, white kids listen to rap than hip hop.
So I think I'm going to split this into 2 parts because it's getting long. Because next, it actually gets worse. I didn't think it would get worse. It actually gets worse. It's going to go into, again, more of our culture and move into rap music. And we're going to break down rap music and why, for some reason, I don't know why people think that's us.